afternoon. It's Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. This is Joe Hall, the black blogger, the black man who reads aloud, www.joesmokethoughts.com, and I'm coming to you again as I read from the Mississippi Narratives, the Federal Writers Project. Today we are reading the recollections of Barry Smith, Uncle Barry. The interviewer was W.B. Allison, and this occurred, as I said, in Forest, Mississippi. As we start to look around, and we've reviewed these stories or these recollections, you see a pattern. And the pattern is that many of these ex-slaves, our ancestors, had a hesitancy about the person who was interviewing and whether or not that person was dangerous to them or their families in terms of the knowledge they gave. Now, Barry Smith was 5'2" or 3 inches tall. He was scrupulously neat. Barry Smith was independent for his age, which is calculated at the date of this interview to be 116 years. Barry believes the figure is correct. His mind is amazingly clear. I was born and bred, and it's an interesting word that he used. He was born and bred. He was bred to work. I was born and bred in Sumter County, Alabama, in the prairie land, 6 miles from Gainesville. That's where I hauled the cotton. It was close to Livingston, Alabama, where we lived. I was 12 years old when the stars fell. They fell late in the night, and they lighted up the whole earth. All the chaps was a running around grabbing for 'em, but none of us ever caught one. It's a wonder some of them didn't hit us, but they didn't. They never hit the ground tall. When they run the engines out the country, me and another chap caught one of them engine ponies and hung him up on the grapevines. He said it was his pony, and I said it was mine. Moss Bob's boy told us his daddy was gonna whip us for stealing the pony, so we hid out in the cane for 2 nights. Moss Bob and his brother whipped us till we didn't want to see no more Indians or their ponies neither. I was born a slave to old Moss Jim Harper, and I fell to Moss Bob. When Moss Jim brought my pa and ma from a man by the name of Smith, and pa kept the name. That's how I come is Barry Smith. They didn't have no schools for us and didn't teach us nothing but work. The bull whipping the paddle was all the teaching we got. The white preachers used to preach to the niggers sometimes in the white folks' church, but I didn't go much. We had fun in them days in spite of everything. The pranks we used to play on them patrollers. Sometimes we tied ropes across the bridge, and the patrollers hit it, and they'd go in the creek. Maybe we'd be fiddling and dancing on the bridge. That was the grown folks, but the chaps come too, and they'd say, "Here come the patrollers." Then we'd put out. If we could get to the master's house, we was all right. Moss Bob didn't let no patrollers come on his place. Moss Alf wouldn't either. They said it was all right if we get home without being caught, but we'd have to take that chance. At the big house, they were spinning wheels in a loom. They made all their clothes on the place. Homespun was what they called their goods. My ma used to spin and weave in the loom room at the big house. There was 2 plantations in Master's land, and they worked a heap of old niggers. I was a houseboy and I didn't go to the fair much. We had overseers on the place, but they was just hired men. They was poor white folks and only got paid about $300 or $400 a year. When we left Alabama to come to Mississippi, we went to the Dehan place near Garlandsville. We brought 18 niggas. We walked 100 miles and it took 5 days and nights. The women and the little chaps rid on the wagons. They had 5 mules to the wagon and the men and the big chaps walked. My pa and my ma come along. We stayed on the Chatham place for about 3 years. Then we moved to Homewood and stayed 5 years. I hung the boards for Moss Bob's house in Homewood. Then we come to Forest. They brought all their family over here, all my brothers and sisters. There was 5 of them, Wash and East and 2 members. All of us belonged to the Harper family. Moss Bob owned us and Ma and Pa both died there here in Forest. I helped to build this house for Moss Bob. I cleaned the land and left the trees where he told me. He lived in a little old shack whilst we built the big house. Mr. M.D. Graham put up the first store here and the second was put up by my master. I worked in the field some, but mostly I was a house servant. I used to go all over the country hunting eggs and chickens for the family and on count there was so much company at the house. A heap of old white folks was good to the niggas, just as good as they could be, but a heap of them was mean too. My missus was good to us, and so was Massa Jim Harper. He wouldn't let boys abuse us where he lived. But when he died, was wild and cruel. They was hard taskmasters. We was fed good 3 times a day, but we was whipped too much. That got me. I couldn't stand it. The old master gave us good dinners at Christmas, but the young one stopped all that. The first shrine I ever seen was in Brandon. I went there to carry some horses for my master. It sure was a fine-looking engine. I was looking at it out of an upstairs window when it whistled, and I jumped out that window as if Captain Harper had grabbed me. I didn't see no fighting in the war. When General Sherman come through here, he come by Hillsboro. Moss Bob didn't go to the war. He listed, but he come right back and went to getting out cross ties for the railroad. He want no soldier. Colonel Harper, that was Moss Alf. He was the soldier. He won't scared of nobody or nothing. The Yankee asked me to go to war, but I told him I ain't no rabbit to live in these woods. My master give me 3 good meals a day and a good house, and I ain't a-going. Moss Bob used to feed us fine, and he was good to us. He wouldn't let no overseer touch his niggas, but he whipped us himself. Then the niggas told me I was free, same as they was. I come and told Moss Bob I was a-going. He says, if you don't go to work, nigga, you're going to get a whipped. So I run away and hid in the woods. The next day I went to Meridian. I cooked for the soldiers for 2 months. Then I come back to Forest and worked spiking tires for the railroad. I heard a heap of talk about Jeb Davis and Abe Lincoln, but I didn't know nothing about them. We heard about the Yankees fighting to free us, but we didn't believe it till we heard about the fighting at Vicksburg. I voted the Republican ticket after the surrender, but I didn't bother with no politics. I didn't want none of it. The Ku Kluxes was bad up here, but I never seen any. I heard tell of them whipping folks, but I don't know nothing about it much. Most all the niggas that had good owners stayed with them, but others left. Some of them come back and some of them didn't. I hear a heap of talk about every nigga getting 40 acres and a mule. They had us fooled up about it, but I never seen nobody get nothing. I hope they won't be no war in my time. Day one was terrible. They can all go that wants to, but I ain't going. I seen Jenner Grant at Vicksburg after the war. He was a little short man. All the niggas went there for something. Me amongst them. I don't know what we went for. I took the steamboating at Vicksburg because I could outcut, because I could cut cotton so good. I could cut cotton now with a cotton hook if I want so old. I steamboated twixt New Orleans and St. Louis on the Commonwealth of Freight Packet, way up yonder in St. Louis. I don't know what country that was in. But the Rousers had a big fight one night in New Orleans shooting and a cutting, so I left. When I got back to Vicksburg, I quit. I picked cotton in the Delta a while, but the folks, white and black, it's too hard. Don't care about nothing. They don't. I was in Greensville when the water come. I heard a noise like a wind, and I asked them niggas, "Is that a storm?" They said, "No, that's the river coming. Though, and you better come back for the water catch you." I said, "If it catch me, it gonna catch me on my way home. I ain't been back since." Then I come back here and went to farming, and I've been here ever since. I brought 47 acres in a nice little house. The house burned down, but the white folks built me a better one. They's a good and kind to me. They says I was a good man. My wife was 6 years old at the surrender. She belonged to Moss Alf, but we was free when we married. We had 16 children. Most of them live around here, some in Newton, some in Scott, and some in Texas. My wife died 2 years ago last March. Moss Bob died right here in this house. He died a poor man. If my old missus had been here, she wouldn't have let him treat him like they done. I've been here, and I wouldn't have let him done like that neither. I've been living by myself since my wife died. My son Oscar lives on the land and rents it from me. I don't know what's going to happen to young folks nowadays. They know better, but they're wild and don't care about nothing. I ain't got no time to fool with them. Looks like they don't care about nothing, care about working at nothing. I've been working all my life, and I've seen good times and bad times. I loves to work yet. I's going out now, and soon I get my dinner, and I help finish picking that patch of cotton. I can pick 200 pounds a day, and I was 100 and 16 years old. I picks with both hands and don't have to stoop much. My back don't never ache me at all. My mama teach me to pick cotton. She took a pole to me if I didn't do it right. And I've been a picking ever since. I'd rather pick cotton than eat any day. But I seen enough. I just waiting for the call to meet all my folks in heaven. There's a better place than this, and I's trying to treat everybody right so I can get to go to it. I's listening hard for the call, and I know it won't be a long in coming. And that is the end of the story or the recollection today of Barry Smith from Forest, Mississippi, 116 years old. This is a black man who reads aloud, reading from the Mississippi Slave Narratives. Ex-slave in Scott County, Barry Smith. Have a great day, and thank you.